Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about a topic that might be slightly controversial, so let's all try and be rational in the comments and not get overtaken by emotions, because I've seen how people have been talking about this on Twitter and I am slightly afraid. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about hormones in terms of trans people. One thing I do want to say is that I've seen discourse pretty much throughout all the platforms I'm on, but specifically on Twitter because, well, let's just leave that there. But there's been discourse around the accessibility of medication for mental illnesses, the accessibility of hormones for trans people, and I've seen a lot of very similar arguments, which granted these topics are not the same at all, but the perspective a lot of people have in terms of who should get hormones, who should get medication is similar in the sense of I've seen a lot of people basically say that everyone should get everything almost in an unregulated way. I'm not saying that this is the dominant thought. I've just seen a lot of people say that, which is to some extent understandable because the accessibility of, I'm going to speak for myself in terms of medication for mental illnesses, is already meh at best, in the sense of there are a lot of people who don't have access for a lot of reasons, whether that's costs/insurance, whether that's even getting an appointment in the first place if you can to see a psychiatrist to get said prescriptions, so on and so forth. So I'm not saying it's the same for trans people, but from what I've read, I've seen that trans people have a lot of difficulty through every single step of the way, whether it be at the very initial steps to the farther on steps in terms of being prescribed whatever they need to be prescribed in order to transition or get to wherever they want to get. This one person was brought to my attention and I have some things to say. Ellie or Eli, I think it's Ellie because her pronouns are she, her. Regardless, I'm gonna just call her by her last name, Ehrlich, to avoid any chaos there. Ehrlich is an internationally awarded writer, activist, and public speaker. In 2011, at age 16, she co-founded Trans Student Education Resources, an organization dedicated to transforming the educational environment for trans students through collective action. It is the only national organization led by trans youth and one of the largest transgender organizations in the country. In the years that followed, Ellie has been at the forefront of transgender justice through her organizing, writing, and research. So that's a little bit of the background. So what caught my attention were tweets that were sent my way. Then I went to check her profile myself and found more. So one of the tweets says, and this is a tweet that was on Ehrlich's own website, says, "Sending life-saving hormones to those in need is going very well, actually. Thanks to your free advertising, we've helped dozens more people access meds in the last couple weeks. Appreciate your gracious support as always." And then they tag this person. This person, no clue who they are, truly not relevant to what we're talking about today, but they were making fun of, belittling, being rude, whatever you want to call it, towards Ehrlich. Sending life-saving hormones sounds like a great thing to do. If you are a doctor who has assessed your patient and you decide that these are the right hormones for them, that they don't have any allergies, intolerances, that they won't have adverse effects, or if they do, that they can come to you and you can help them because you know their medical history, if all of that has occurred, fine. Now though, we have a problem if someone who doesn't even know you, who's potentially never even seen you in real life, or potentially hasn't even seen a picture of you, and how would they even confirm it if they don't know you, is just sending them to you via mail, not knowing your age, not knowing anything, but just you saying that you need them. Do we see a problem here? Now, Ehrlich got into quite a bit of hot water due to this, also advertised on Instagram that they were doing this, which is low-key just wild to me, because you really are going on Instagram to say that you are illegally giving people medication or an equivalent of medication, whatever you want to call it, that they are not prescribed, that they would need to be prescribed for their own safety, mind you, and some of these people might also be underage. No matter what the medication is, even if it were medication for a tiny rash I have, you best believe I'm not going to ask someone on the internet to send me a prescription level rash cream to me and just trust them that it's real. Aside from that, hormones have a bigger impact and will have a bigger impact also if you just stop randomly taking them because you change your mind, because whatever the case is. And this is not to belittle anyone who has made their decisions. I'm just saying it is actually dangerous. It has nothing to do with being trans or not trans. It's the idea of giving someone something that they may not be safe taking. So I read an article about Ehrlich, and one thing I want to make very clear is the majority of the articles that I found about Ehrlich and this whole situation are right-wing leaning articles. The majority of them are right-wing biased or right-wing publications straight up. So keep that in mind. In this particular case, I only chose quotes from Ehrlich. There are over 20 states trying to criminalize hormone therapy, particularly for trans youth, Ehrlich wrote in the post. So my friends and I had an idea. Sending out our extra prescriptions around the country. If you need hormones, I'm working with a distribution network to get you access. Everything is free, no questions asked. We have hundreds of doses of testosterone, estradiol, and spironolactone available right now. She continued, each package comes with information on dosage, obtaining blood work, etc. I realize this is only a band-aid solution. We need full access to affirmative care from professionals immediately. However, missing a single dose of hormones can be devastating, especially for trans teens and those new to hormones.
One quick thing I wanted to add is that this article is obviously quoting this post that you see on the screen. Now, as you can see, I highlighted a bit that says that everything is prescribed by doctors and unused. Needless to say, this makes it sound more reassuring, right? Because you have the prescription by doctors. It still doesn't make it necessarily the right fit. It doesn't make it that much more safe if there's no actual evaluation of the person in question. So it being prescribed by doctors, to me, doesn't translate as particularly useful at all. If anything, it makes me question the doctors prescribing this without even knowing who they're dealing with.
And then it talks about how the right has reacted to her and so on and so forth, which is not particularly relevant to this. But as you might expect, the right called her a criminal, drug trafficker, so on and so forth, which is by no means surprising. And effectively, if you are sending drugs to people, it is criminal activity. The ideal thing would be that each person could access the health care they need in order to get the hormones, the medication, whatever it is that they need, and more specifically, trans people, and in this case, we're talking about a lot of trans youths, right? That being said, I don't even think this is really a band-aid solution, because here there is the mention of working with some kind of distribution network, and then it also mentions information on dosage, obtaining blood work, blah, blah, blah. I have to wonder, how specific is this information, as in information for obtaining blood work? Like, are you getting something from Google? Or are you actually asking medical professionals that can give more specific advice for trans people, more specific advice for trans people who don't have insurance, more specific information for trans people who might be still too young and want to get more information in terms of when they can get their hormone therapy? All of these things, where is this information coming from? First of all, is it checked by medical professionals? And last of all, the thing I was going to say is, if you have to pair up with someone, I would hope that you would find some kind of clinic or medical facility, doctor's practice, something that has a level of legitimacy beyond what anyone can Google. And the fact that she realizes it's a band-aid solution is great, but like I said, I don't even think this qualifies as a band-aid solution, because if it's not even a solution but kind of a gamble on whether this is going to work when we're talking about people's health, is that a gamble you really want to take? Especially, she even said it herself, that when you skip a single dose of hormones, it can be devastating. Okay, so are you there to fully promise that they're going to be able to continue to have their doses the same way as if they were prescribed and could just go to the pharmacy to get it? Are you there to ensure that that won't happen? Because that's a responsibility you're taking as the supplier, right? Or is that then their problem? You know what I mean? Like, where do we draw the lines here? Because truly, if we go back to the mental health, mental illness parallel, I know back in the day when I was taking antidepressants, if I stopped abruptly, which my doctor specifically told me not to do, they told me that the effects could be, I'm not going to go into details, but pretty devastating. So there, at least I had a doctor I could refer to. I thankfully was covered by insurance and all these other things that are there effectively to help me, protect me, whatever. But here, it's like, if you don't have any of that, and then suddenly they don't have access to the hormones, then what? then they're going to be in a worse case than before and there's no one to support them. And I think that's the real bottom line that scares me, is not only is there no one to help you if there's a problem while you're taking these hormones because you're basically doing it unsupervised, but it's also if they stop abruptly, there's no one you can even refer to for help. You know what I mean? If we're really going to go into the details, I know that everywhere I've lived, it's always been hard to even get an appointment with a psychologist or especially psychiatrist. Sometimes it would be months out. So it scares me on so many ends, and to me it just seems irresponsible, because at the end of the day, it's real easy to be like, oh yeah, I'll just send them to you, but even in terms of organization, is this a well-oiled machine? Because if it's free for you, basically, as stated in the video.
Every month for the past several years, I've ordered a double dose of hormones and testosterone blockers. I save all the extra pills for my best friends, my closest lovers, and my worst enemies. I just hope these little pills can bring some joy into their life. I have the opportunity to give life-saving medication to people who need it, and it basically costs me nothing.
Does that mean that you are paying people out of pocket to help you, or you're by yourself sending all these doses out to these people? Who's keeping track of the people you're sending to? Are you fact-checking people's ages? Are you even sure these are the people who need it? Because then you're just maybe just sending it to random people. You could even be sending it to transphobes who hope to cause a shortage. Like, these are all crazy little scenarios I've come up with in like 2 seconds, but if you're not checking, it's not like you don't know that they're untrue. And on top of that, the last thing I'm gonna say is that doing this type of shit illegally oftentimes does not serve you well, because what ends up happening is that they restrict even more because they see that you're going around the laws. There are plenty of medications that already have shortages. That's a different conversation. But if it's already hard for people to obtain certain medications, hormones, so on and so forth, do you really think it's going to help to have people out there like you who are taking advantage of their prescription and giving it away? Do you think big pharma and just doctors generally are going to prescribe in the same way if this really affects things, if there are more emergencies, all of that? Like, do you really think that's gonna help? Anyways, you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know if you think that this is even a short-term solution, if that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.